Yes. All right. So this is episode number 65 of Into the Absurd. Hold on a second. I've got some. I'm trying to get your book up real quick. I'll cut this part out. I'll probably just restart, actually. Okay. All right, this is episode 65 of Into the Absurd. We have Vincent Field on the podcast with us today. He's the author of Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming, which is on Amazon. And it looks like you can actually get it. You can try it for free for a short period of time. And then it looks like it'll be like, then with like Premium Plus. Yeah, with Premium Plus, you can have it for free, supposedly. One title per month from Audible's entire catalog of bestsellers and new releases. Anyways, welcome, Vince. It's good to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So what's your background on this? Like, what made you want to write this book?
Well, I've been having these experiences for over 20 years. And, I thought I was at a point where I was ready to not only share my experiences with the world, but to help other people get into this as well and, have their own experiences. I think, after that much time in this field, you tend to naturally want to start helping others and, teach and, start to serve rather than solely do it for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I heard, I'm not sure where this is from, but it's this quote that says that everyone has a gift, and our only one true obligation is to give that gift to the world. So, and I think, yeah, if that's, that's your gift, right? To lucid dream, do astral projection and like see all this stuff. And then you can come back to, I guess, our physical three-dimensional reality, and you can write this book and you can give that gift to the world, right? So I think that's a beautiful thing for anyone that does that sort of thing. So
definitely, man.
And actually, with as a sidetrack to that, have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have not read the book, The Alchemist.
It's okay. So in there, he says that your only one true obligation is to realize your destiny, or to like pursue your destiny, or something like that. And what's your opinion of destiny? Do you believe in destiny?
Yeah, man. It's I think it's a bit complex, perhaps a bit convoluted, but yeah, immediately what I think is, how do you know what is your destiny? Do you go with what makes you feel good, what you're passionate about, or what helps other people? There are different ways to consider, like, what is your destiny and how do you know that it is truly your destiny? And it could be that whatever happens to play out during your life, that was your destiny. Who knows? I think it is beyond our comprehension, like in this life. Although I will say that I've had experiences in higher dimensions, during astral projection, which have revealed things to me about my own destiny, which I would have no idea about from a strictly physical vantage point, and I only discovered through these higher level experiences. So I think there are ways to actually tap into this information, but it is kind of going beyond our normal waking life and physical perceptions.
It's like it's almost like you can kind of get to this, I guess, higher dimension, so to speak, and you can kind of see the tracks of the train, right? And like where they're heading, or like where you need to direct yourself to get on those tracks, right? But so can we like step back a little bit, and can you explain first, say what lucid dreaming is, and then second, what astral projection is?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Lucid dreaming is simply becoming lucid during a dream, which means you become aware that you're dreaming. And from that state of consciousness, you're able to manipulate your dream. You're able to manifest pretty much any experience that you desire. And there are a lot of pretty interesting things you can do, things you can discover, about who you are and about the nature of reality, like on a deeper level. And astral projection is similar, but the main difference is that lucid dreaming takes place in more of a subconsciously created reality, whereas astral projection takes place in more of a consensus level of reality, which exists beyond your own mind. So aside from those differences, there's also the difference of how these experiences are induced. So typically the lucid dream is induced directly from the dream state. So it's usually some kind of subconscious trigger that induces the lucid dream, and you suddenly realize, oh, I'm dreaming, I'm in a dream. Whereas during astral projection, you typically induce this experience from a fully awakened state. So you don't fall asleep. There's no break in consciousness. You basically lay down. You can do a meditation. There are different methods, but you shift into the out-of-body experience directly. Whereas lucid dreaming that typically is not a direct experience. It's more of an indirect, subconsciously triggered experience.
So would you say, like with lucid dreaming, you kind of like you're also aware that you're laying down, right, in your bed and you're dreaming, right? But with astral projection, it's more like forget about the person laying in the bed. I'm way out I'm way out of there. I'm in a whole other place. I'm not even inside my mind anymore. Would you say it's kind of like that, if we're using really layman terms, I guess?
I would say that during a lucid dream, you typically have no awareness of yourself in bed. You just realize you're dreaming and you're fully immersed in this dream state.
Okay.
And it's a very vivid experience.
Okay.
And whereas with astral projection, well, you start from that state that you're in bed laying down, and then you experience yourself, lifting out of the body, or
Okay.
any way you separate. And see, the thing is, it's a bit more complex than that, and
Yeah.
there are ways to experience multiple aspects of your consciousness simultaneously. So typically you have an astral projection and you're fully immersed out in the astral dimension, but there are ways to actually split your consciousness so that you perceive yourself in bed and out in the astral dimension simultaneously. And not only that, but in other dimensions as well. Because like I said, it's so complex. Your consciousness, it doesn't just leave the body, but it kind of mirrors itself, like fragments or splits off into multiple dimensions simultaneously. And so typically your experience is just of one of these aspects of your consciousness. But like I said, there are ways to tap into multiple aspects at the same time. And during experiences like these, over the years doing experiments in these states, it becomes clear that we do exist in multiple levels of reality at the same time. We're typically just aware of only one, but like I said, it's more complex than that.
Yeah, no, I think I get what you're saying. It's almost like it reminds me a lot of quantum mechanics, and like quantum entanglement, as if
Mhm.
like you're almost entangled to that other part of yourself that's in another, I guess, dimension, right?
Yeah.
Um, so when like are you familiar with the first time that you ever lucid dreamed, or
Yeah. Well, actually, my lucid dreaming was more of a byproduct of my astral projection practice.
okay,
And so I started this when I was 14 years old. And yeah, it was the astral projection that really sparked my lucid dreaming.
okay,
Um, and I can't say that I remember my first lucid dream, because I'm pretty sure I had lucid dreams before I started astral projecting. I think lucid dreaming is more of a universal experience. Everyone, a lot of people will have that experience one time or another, or multiple occasions every now and
yeah,
then. Um, but yeah, when I was 14, I learned how to astral project, and almost all of my astral projections are very clear in my memory.
yeah. So what was, I guess, the first time that you're like, like, okay, I think I know how to do this, uh, and you go in, or like, how did you even approach it, and like, what was the experience like?
Well, I learned about out of body experiences on the internet back when I
Yeah,
was 14. Like, my family just got a computer. It was like in the early days of the internet, so there wasn't a lot of information out there. It took
yeah,
like 10 minutes to load a website. But eventually I came across this and I was like, this is incredible, and I want to try it. And I found a technique to do it. And within a week, I was able to leave my body, and I just kept doing it. And over time, I got better, and I developed. And so the first time, it was a pretty basic experience. I floated out of my body. I saw my body in the bed, and I was hovering over it. I flew out of my window, out into the sky, and I remember flying over to my grandparents' house. And it was a pretty basic experience. That was pretty much it. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And during these experiences, uh, sometimes you're more lucid, and you're more conscious than you are in this normal physical reality. And
yeah,
so that aspect of it was really incredible. It's like experiencing yourself and your consciousness like on a whole other level.
yeah. Do you think that has something to do with like the fact that you're almost like you're going beyond physical sensations, and it's kind of a more, it's like it's different than having physical sensations because you're not in your physical body, right? You're like outside of it. So it's like you're almost just having these conscientious sort of experiences. If that makes any sense. I'm not sure. And maybe that's why you feel more conscious, because you're not distracted by the physical reality.
Yeah, for sure. In my experience, the physical dimension is like the lowest level of reality that we experience. And, you know, as you enter these higher dimensions, you basically um, enter states of consciousness that are more pure and closer to like who we
Yeah.
truly are as, spiritual and conscious entities. So like as you enter these higher dimensions, all of that is just enhanced. Your consciousness, your experience, reality. It just uh, it exponentially
Yeah.
intensifies, unlike anything you could experience here.
Could you just do me a favor real quick and just move the cord away from the camera
Oh
real quick?
shit, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Didn't realize
it's
that.
chill. It's chill. So like what exactly did you do to learn how to astral project? Like what are your techniques, I guess?
Okay.
Or like what did you
Well,
start? I'm sure you got better at it over time, but what did you first initially do?
right. The first method I learned was a method you used from a fully awakened state. So it involved completely relaxing the body through a series of tensing every muscle group progressively,
Yeah.
like from the feet to the head, or vice versa. And not only was the physical body aspect part of the meditation, but there's a mental aspect too, in which you need to keep the mind alert and awake, because what you need to do essentially is have your body fall asleep while keeping your mind awake. So I started doing this at night, and that turned out to be a mistake simply because that's not the ideal state to have these experiences. So, like I said, in less than a week, I was able to do this, but it would take almost an hour doing it at night. Whereas the second method I learned and tried and had success with um, was done in the early morning. And this, the first time I did it, it took less than 10 minutes. It was you know, almost like a breakthrough. Like, wow, this is so much easier than what I thought it would be. And and that's because in the early morning, your mind and body are in the ideal state to have these experiences. Because the idea is to wake up a couple hours before you normally wake up. And in this state, your body can fall back asleep pretty easily. It's already, deeply relaxed. So you don't have to induce this relaxed state of your body like you would have to do at night. But your mind is also rested, it's gotten maybe 5, 6 hours of sleep. So it's a lot easier to keep your mind awake. Whereas, late at night, you just want to go to sleep. So the process is just a lot more difficult. And
That
so I
makes
started
sense.
doing it in the early morning, and that was basically a huge change in my practice. And from then on, that was the main time to do it. And I also practiced at night. It was more difficult, but there is also benefit in doing that. But these days it just takes a couple seconds, in the early
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah, no, this one time, my friend Kevin, who I was telling you about earlier, he like laid me down on bed, and then he started telling me to, like focus on the different parts of my body, um, like, and try to tense it up. And then, you work your way around until you get your whole body into it. And then he had me like imagine myself in this scenario where I'm walking like in a cabin or something and walking down to this lake. And then I like do all this stuff. It didn't work for me. I wasn't able to do it, but he was able to get other people to, I guess, like astral project, but I guess like he called it hypnotizing them. Um, but I guess I think honestly, he was probably getting them to astral project, right? Um, uh, just I guess he was just using a different terminology, but kind of hypnotization is sort of a much different thing. I feel like um, a much different thing. But yeah, it was interesting. But I think that is something to try, and we did do that at nighttime, so maybe that contributed to that not working. But I have lucid dreamed before, a few times, and he suggested to me to go to sleep and then set an alarm for 4 hours later and then wake up and then go back to sleep. And then that's when you're more likely to have a lucid dream because you interrupted your REM cycle. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
Yeah, and that's similar to what I said with the astral projection
Yeah,
technique, and it works for both
yeah,
equally as well, lucid dreaming and astral projection,
yeah.
for sure.
So, so like, what are, I guess you said, like, what do you think? It's a good way to phrase this. Like, do you ever take, like, when you're doing these astral projections, do you ever, well, let's preface this with this. Have you ever read Carl Jung? Like
Yeah,
any
yeah,
Carl Jung?
I for sure.
Yeah, the thing about him is that he kind of presents this in his book, Symbols and Dream Interpretation. He presents this structure for dreams where he believes that when you're analyzing a dream, you can take everything as like this metaphor, right? That means something. Like, and there's all these archetypes that show up. Like, there's all these dream characters, and these dream characters aren't actually the persons themselves, but they're the archetype that person represents, if that makes any sense. And when you're like doing your astral projection and you see someone, um do you like ever think of it that way, like this person, like this is that almost meaningful representation of the physical person, like this is what, like this represents all the possible iterations of the physical reality of that person, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely applies to the dreaming and lucid dreaming experience. Um, but like I mentioned before, astral projection is a different type of experience. It takes place in a different level of consciousness and different level of reality.
Okay.
And so in my experience, what I've learned is that um, typically who and what you experience in the astral dimension um, does exist. Like I said, it's not just an archetype. It's not just a type of manifestation of the subconscious mind. Symbols, but it's more of a concrete level of reality. And so during my astral projections, I've met people and entities, and I was given the knowledge that they do exist. They are real. Whereas during lucid dreams, um, it's not always clear that that is the case, that
Yeah.
these are just manifestations of the mind. But there's also another distinction between lucid dreams and astral projections, which is typically during lucid dreams you have a type of narrative taking place, just like during a dream. It's like there's a story happening, and like you're involved in the story and you're immersed in it. And it is the same in lucid dreams. The main difference is that you're aware of your participation in this story. And the difference is that when you raise your consciousness to the level of an astral projection, there is no longer this narrative, this story. It's like you're completely free of that, and you break into this higher level where um, it's hard to explain, because in the
Yeah.
state of consciousness you have this connection. It seems like there's almost like sometimes a connection with truth itself, and there's no doubt that this is real, what you're experiencing is real. And it's typically not something that we experience during our normal waking lives. We say, oh yeah, of course, what we're experiencing right now is real. And some people will say, well, how do you know it's real? What if this is like the Matrix? And that's possible, but that same logic applies to these other levels of experience too. So in my experience, astral projection um, is, if anything, more real than this level of reality, just because uh, it seems like when you're disconnected from the body, that just decreases it, like kind of almost eliminates this barrier that we have to a higher level of our existence that you experience during these higher levels of consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. You're like more kind of like how can I phrase this? In our physical reality, we're all these bubbles that are on top of a pool, right? But when you astral project, you get to go inside of the pool actually, and you're not just a bubble anymore.
Sure.
And you're kind of immersed in like the real reality, not that bubble individualistic reality in a sense. At least that's that's kind of the way that I am conceptualizing what you explained to me.
That's cool. I like that analogy. And based on my experience, to take that a step further, I would say that in this physical world, we're the bubble, like on the surface of the pool. And during the astral projection, the bubble pops, and really we're the air in that bubble. And when the bubble pops, we're free, and we experience like this kind of unification with this like higher level of reality. It's kind of like that.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. And you're kind of immersed in it. And do you find any like loss? Like, how would you define the self?
And the self is very complex. I'm going to say this a lot because like the more you have these experiences, like it's kind of like that saying, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
It's like that, with this. So the self, in some of my like most profound out of body experiences, I've merged or integrated with what I call, and what is typically called, the higher self. And essentially what the higher self is like the highest level, or like the highest state of your spiritual being. And the idea is that typically, we're only aware of who we are in this life, but that is only a small aspect of our total state of consciousness. Like we actually exist at a higher level as a much more expansive, a much greater entity, conscious entity. And so that's what we call the higher self. And the higher self, in a sense, incarnates into this world as multiple different people, different personalities, different individuals. But it's not quite like the Buddhist concept of reincarnation, where like you die and then you're reborn in a new body, and then that dies and you keep going. But it's like we're having all of these independent existences as different individuals, but at a higher level we're all connected. But like it's not me who's being born into a new body, it's a totally different like individual, but we're connected at this higher level. And so in these experiences with the higher self, you experience this, like you experience this unification with all of these other individuals. And but it's not only that, it's like you experience the state of being this higher level of consciousness, and it's basically a state of just like complete bliss and joy and love and like unification with everything. And it's such a like a profound and intense experience. Sometimes like it's too much. Like you can't stay in that state for very long, because it feels like who you are is just like disintegrating, and like you're just going to explode and just like never come back together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you mean. I haven't had that kind of experience with astral projection, but I have like when I've taken mushrooms, say. I've had experiences like that, not quite as intense as like feeling totally 100% connected with everything, but definitely to the extent where like I didn't really feel like an individual anymore. I felt more like I felt like an individual and I was aware of my individuality. But there was also this sense that I was kind of immersed with everything else and I was like a part of everything else, like as if my body was extended to the whole universe. Like I could feel like everything, like the stars and the dirt. And but yeah, like those kind of experiences they're very profound and you can't really put your finger on it. So like what you said you had some like nightmarish experiences while astral projecting. And so like when you're astral projecting, you're not like 100% in control of everything around you, right? Like there's, because if you're having nightmarish experiences, that means that it's almost like there's an external that's also in control of things, right?
Exactly, right. So like, whereas in a lucid dream, if some bad situation happens to manifest, you can change that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's essentially all within your own subconscious mind. Yeah, and in astral projection, that's not the case. So what typically happens is if you find yourself in that kind of situation, um, you know, and you experience like this strong state of fear, there's almost this type of like reflex, like a protection mechanism, and it causes you to re-enter your body like automatically, like instantly. So it's not like you're out there floating around in the astral dimension and like some demons come after you and you have to like find your way back to your body. It's like instantly you just snap back. And that comes in handy because uh you know sometimes you will find yourself face to face with something that you don't want to be face to face with, and it's it's a blessing that that's the way it works, because that's happened to me more times than I can count.
Do you think like I don't know, I just had this thought. Do you think it's possible that with, say, UFO sighting, people claiming that they got abducted by aliens, you think it's possible that they were just astral projecting?
Man, that's a great question. And this is something I talk about in my book, and it's something I have experience with.
Yeah.
There are many aspects of the abduction scenario that are almost, exactly the same as astral projection.
Yeah.
So, one of them is a state of paralysis. A lot of abductees claim that the aliens induce the state of paralysis and they can't move. Other people say that it's sleep paralysis and they enter the state of sleep paralysis and they see the aliens, right? And the thing is that, like I said, to have an astral projection, your body needs to fall asleep and your mind stays awake. And when your body falls asleep, it naturally enters the state of paralysis, just so you don't like physically act out your dreams at night.
Yeah.
And so you experience that, and if you're prepared for that, then it's fine. It's supposed to happen, and you go with it, and then you leave your body. But if you don't have experience with that, if you don't have the discernment to realize like this is just a natural occurrence, Well, that can instantly induce a state of fear, right? So on top of that fear of just not being able to move, you're stuck in your body. Well, what happens in this state is that typically, even before projecting from the body, your consciousness actually shifts beyond the physical dimension into the astral before even like lifting out of the body. So a lot of times you'll be perceiving the astral dimension, but physically it'll seem like you're still in your body. And so a lot of times these entities, these aliens or, shadow people, demons, whatever else you would see, these exist in the astral dimension. But a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, these are really here in my room, um, and on top of that, the abduction experience, people will experience, being lifted out of their bed, flying through the roof into the sky, into some craft or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in astral projection. You float out of your body. You can fly right through the wall, through the roof. And on top of that, I've had many experiences where I am pulled out of my body. I'm not trying to have an astral projection, but entities take me out of my body. And I've seen them on many occasions, and a lot of times they look like aliens. They look like the typical gray alien. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
And so yeah, all these factors, they lead me to believe that at least some abduction reports may be astral projections. Now, I do know that there are many others that probably are physical experiences, but
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Especially like, do you believe that like people can have like a group astral projection? Like they can astral project together and like see each other basically?
yeah, I
Or
do
like,
think that. And I wish I had experience with that. And I've tried to get my friends and family into this, and it's usually not successful. When I first started when I was 14, I told one of my good friends about this, and he was actually able to leave his body too, but I guess he just wasn't like into it like I was, so he was like, whatever, he stopped. And I've had experiences with my wife
yeah.
in this state, and during some experiences, like, she was aware of me, and during other experiences, like, I was aware of her, and it's not always like a mutual thing. And there are reasons for that, which do make sense. But in short, yeah, I definitely think it's possible.
Yeah, because there's all these, and also like, do you think you were saying earlier that in the case of the alien abduction, like a lot of times people will end up in a different spot, they'll be naked. Do you think it's possible that they're, say, like not sleepwalking, but they're astral project walking, I guess, if that's what you want to call it? They're moving to like these other locations, they're putting their clothes off, and then like they're like, and then they like come back to their bodies basically, and like, oh, what, like I just got abducted, right? I don't know.
It's possible, man. How you appear out in the astral dimension is a kind of subjective thing. I mean, typically, um, your body doesn't look as solid as it does here. Sometimes it looks translucent. Sometimes you'll see yourself wearing clothes, sometimes not. Sometimes you don't perceive a body at all. It really depends on your state of consciousness and what level, what dimension you project to. But the thing is that it's such a lucid and real experience that if you don't have, a lot of experience and discernment, then it's going to be hard for you to realize that you're in this out of body state. It's going to seem like completely real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what have you learned about from your experiences with astral projection? What have you learned like from those experiences in how to deal with your everyday physical life as a physical being?
Well, what these experiences have given me and what they have the potential to give everyone is basically a whole new perspective on who you are
Yeah.
and on what life is and what this reality is and what the purpose of all of it is, because you can, you know, directly experience this, firsthand. And there's no more guessing, there's no more doubt, because you enter these higher realities and all of this is made known to you. And so, like I said, there's no more doubt anymore. And I think that is such like a limiting factor for a lot of people. It's such a hindrance. Like we just we don't know what any of this is about, and we're just guessing, and we're trying to, oh, this belief is suitable for me this year, but I'm going to change it to this next year because something in my life has changed. And we're just like hopping around, going from belief to belief, based on like what makes us feel good. But the reality is that, the truth is that reality is so incredible, and who you are is so much more than what you could possibly imagine if you don't have these experiences. Um, like that is what's incredible, and then you don't need to keep hopping around from this belief to that belief, just based on your whims and, whatever particular situation you're going through. Like it doesn't matter what happens in this world. Like I know this is who I am, and I know this is my purpose, and I know that no matter what happens, like this life is incredible. And after this life, it's going to be even better, because now I've already been there. When you enter the astral dimensions and higher, you enter the realities where we go when we die. And that can be a huge benefit. It's like preparing for it, and you can really bypass a lot of like the stumbling blocks and a lot of these steps that you would normally go through after you die. Well, you've already gone through that in this life, and so you basically project into a much higher reality. And higher reality, what it basically means is a reality where you're more in tune with who you are. You're more in tune with God, and essentially, we're evolving as spiritual beings. So we're starting here, and we're trying to get higher and higher in terms of becoming more pure, spiritual, loving, um, unified beings. And this practice basically accelerates that.
Okay. Yeah, like it accelerates this process of becoming a more like loving uh humanity, right? A more like we're just more like this is where we're going, and how we, let's just, because like when you come to the realization that you're immersed with it all, right? You and all your peers are one and the same. You can have a little bit more compassion for everyone else. you can have a little bit more love, and you might not treat them as wrongly, when you're in the physical world. uh,
Yeah, for sure.
like
And I've had friends over the years who have been in some pretty dark places, and just sharing my perspective and my experiences with them, I've seen how it's given them hope, and it's really helped them, and they didn't even have these experiences personally. um, but you know it just gave them a little spark of hope and motivation, like maybe there is something more than this shitty situation that I'm dealing with right now.
yeah, it gives them, like, I guess, something to look forward to. um but I do think that it's more, instead of waiting for it to happen, I do think it's more valuable to try it out as you do. um like, mainly because you can at least, like, you can experience it now, then you can go back and you can live your life having experienced those things, right? If that makes any sense. I think that's more valuable. I think it's more valuable if you can come back from it than being there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. You'll hear a lot of cases of near death experiences,
Yeah.
and the person actually dies and they come back, and they're almost always transformed. They're changed by the experience, because
Yeah.
they understand now, oh, there's so much more than just this life. And what I do here is important, and reality is just so much more incredible than what I had any concept for before. And it's the same with this. You don't actually die, and you don't need to die to experience that. You can experience that you exist beyond the body while you're alive and healthy.
Yeah. So, like, what are, like, some of the nightmarish experiences that you've had while doing this for so many years?
Well, they started happening almost immediately. And the main reason for that is because typically in the beginning of your astral projection practice, you'll project into the lower dimensions. And how it works is basically reality, like non-physical reality, exists in a spectrum. And I would consider it like from low to high. So the lowest, like our base, is the physical world. So like, let's say the dimension slightly above the physical dimension would be like the lowest non-physical dimension. And then, it gets higher from there. And by lower and higher, it essentially means like the frequency of the vibration of the energy of that level. So like here in the physical dimension, um, we perceive only a limited range of the frequencies of light, right? And then the other frequencies, like X-ray and microwave and infrared, they're invisible to us. They exist. And so in the same way, like these higher dimensions of reality exist at higher frequencies, just like light. And so when you have these out-of-body experiences, you can enter these higher dimensions and perceive them and experience them. And so it takes a bit of development to begin to access the higher dimensions. And like I think I mentioned before, higher dimensions are typically correlated with experiences of love and unification and bliss. And essentially in lower dimensions, it's more common to experience negative types of entities, whereas in higher dimensions, it's more common to experience, encounter more positive, loving, spiritual, enlightened type of entities. And so I think it was my second astral projection, and I floated out of my body, and there was this huge shadow person right next to me. and it was probably like 7 feet tall, and it was so scary because I was 14 at the time, and I had no idea that these things existed. And all of a sudden, I was like face to face with this thing, and like I mentioned before, there's this like reflex that if you enter this state of heightened fear when you're out of body, you re-enter your body like instantly. So that happened, and I was pretty shook, but I decided to give it another go. So I shifted out of my body again, and this thing was still there. This huge shadow is just standing there, just facing me, and it was so freaky. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm good. I got back to my body, and I didn't give up. Obviously, I tried it the next day. I was trying this every day. So the next day, I had another projection, and more times than not, these shadow beings would be there, almost like they were waiting for me to leave my body. And sometimes they would just be standing there, just facing me. But other times they would come at me like they'd try to grab me. And almost every time it would cause me to re-enter my body, because it's such a scary experience. There's nothing to compare it to.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that'd be terrifying. It'd be like a real life horror movie, basically.
Right. Exactly.
What
But
does it look like though?
it looks like a giant shadow, like a giant silhouette, like a dark, like a black silhouette. Like there's no detail, there's no face, there are no features. Like you can see like the form, the shape of the body, but it's kind of, even that is not completely like solid. It's really hard to describe. And maybe there's some movies, some horror movies that kind of depict what it would look like. um but yeah, that's pretty much it. But after a while of these experiences and some experimentation, I realized that if I just completely ignored these shadow people, that I would be able to shift into a dimension higher than that dimension. You know, what I realized is that they exist in these very lower dimensions, like just above the physical world. If you shift into a higher dimension, you completely bypass their territory, and so you won't even experience them at all. So eventually, I stopped encountering them, and I started encountering these entities, which were like 10 times more frightening than them. And these entities looked like aliens.
Yeah.
They looked very similar to gray, the gray aliens,
Yeah, like the gray ones. Yeah.
but
Like
they
with
weren't
the
gray.
black eye. Oh,
Yeah, they had the big slanted black eyes, but they weren't gray. They were like a light orange color.
yeah.
and they would stalk me, just like these shadow beings were always there when I would leave my body. Well, now it was these aliens, but the difference was that these aliens would affect me with this energy that was almost artificial. So like during these experiences, when you're having a projection, you experience strong energy, but it's your own energy, it's your energy body. But these aliens would almost like zap me. They would affect me in some way with this
Yeah.
energy that was so foreign from anything I had experienced, and I knew it came directly from them, and it had this paralyzing effect on me. And so sometimes I would leave my body, and they would just be standing all around my bed. Sometimes one or two, but sometimes an entire group of them. And it was like they were just like, I don't know, observing me like analyzing. Sometimes they would be face to face with me, and it was so unusual because their faces sometimes they would twitch from side to side, almost like they had this mechanical quality to them, like they were glitching or something, and so disturbing. And I had experiences with these entities for years, and most of them were pretty unpleasant.
Do you think it's possible that, say, like a civilization can become so technologically advanced that they can like almost create a machine that like projects you into the astral dimension? And
Sure.
like these like beings, like I'm just talking on my ass here, but like these beings could like theoretically be just like trying to study this astral dimension, but they don't really know a whole lot about it. And they're kind of like not really in it. Like they're like half in it, half not, because they're using like a device to get into it. Whereas you're getting into it just through like your mind, basically. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I've contemplated like the nature of these entities, and how they exist in these higher dimensions, like if that's actually like where they live, or if they kind of just temporarily project there, like I do, like other people do. um you know I can't say for sure, but
So
it's certainly possible.
have you ever talked to any of them?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was so scared. I wouldn't allow the time for any kind of you know communication. But after a while, I started to realize, like, you know they weren't hurting me. Like, nothing bad has actually ever happened from these encounters, so let me just go with it. And even though every time I sensed this like sinister energy, like they were evil, I decided, all right, I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens. And so a couple times, um, they opened this type of like telepathic link with me, and they started giving me this information uh, on two occasions, two experiences that I wrote about in my book. They told me about this technology that they have. One of those times, they told me about this technology they have, which
Like in the
um,
physical world, the technology that they have in
mm,
the physical world, or technology that they have in the astral world?
I can't say for sure, but what I can say is that I don't think that's really an important distinction,
Okay.
because of the nature of the technology. What they do is they, in a way, record all knowledge that is accumulated by all living beings in the universe throughout time, throughout history. And they showed me this type of metallic spherical device, and I was told that this is where they keep all of this knowledge. Okay, pretty unusual experience. I don't know why they showed me that, but they did. On another occasion, they showed me this technology they have, which tracks me, and it doesn't track my body. It tracks my energy body, my astral body,
Okay.
and I was shown some type of like computer type technological screen. It seemed like some kind of GPS type of technology, and it makes sense that they don't track my physical body, but they track the activities of my energy body, my spirit or astral body,
Yeah.
because they always seem to be there, like waiting for me when I would leave my body. Like, how else would they know that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But like, do you think like do you think they should like do you think that's like ethical for them to have that kind of technology to like track
I,
you?
I,
I don't know. Like does that make sense? Like because these beings
yeah,
are
yeah,
basically
man.
on the same playing field as you, right? But they're tracking your like energy. I don't know. They're tracking your energy around. Sounds a little. I don't know. It sounds a little
Yeah, man.
totalitarian to me.
I think their concept of ethics and morality is completely different from ours.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, do you feel bad when you step on an ant walking out on the sidewalk? You know?
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. No. Like, I mean, I don't care if they're tracking me, but like, but it is an interesting question to think about. Like, I guess interdimensional ethics. Uh,
Yeah, I've had many experiences with entities, which I could tell had compassion. And like
yeah.
I said, this group of beings did not. They were cold, hard, mechanical, and I just got this sinister vibe from them
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. I mean, I would too. I mean, uh, yeah. Yeah. They seem kind of just freaky. So I should probably close this out at least within the next 5 minutes, just because I have to run home and get to bed for work tomorrow morning. But
Sure, man. Man, I have like hours more of
yeah,
experiences and theory and all this stuff. If you want to have another episode sometime,
I would.
we can have a
Yeah,
part two.
yeah. No, I would definitely. I like to have a part two sometime. So like what? Because like I've had lots of people on the podcast, but I've had them on like multiple times. So
Nice.
I did want to ask the like, what is one of your like, um, I guess your main theory about all this, or like the one that you're most like proud of, like you look back, like yeah, this makes sense, as far as explaining the nature of astral projection,
Yeah.
or like these entities, just anything that like
Sure,
pops in your
sure.
head.
hmm I guess it basically goes back to what I've been saying in terms of how complex it all
Yeah,
is. But the nature of our reality and the nature of who we are is so much more expansive, and it runs so much deeper than what the majority of people that will listen to this have experienced. And by having these experiences, you tap into this deeper level of who you are and this deeper level of reality, and it really
yeah,
just it opens up this whole new perspective that influences everything in your life, because your perspective is what kind of colors all of your experiences that we have here,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So it's really a transformational practice, not just getting into like the higher levels that you can experience, but even the most basic level, it opens up just so much more to your perceptions, and how you interpret the things that happen in your own life. So it's it's definitely something to consider investigating if you haven't already.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Especially like people who doubt that it's real. I think they could gain some insight if they just at least gave it a shot, right? Um,
For sure.
just wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow and just like give it like an hour, try it out. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think I'm gonna just like, hey guys, just go check out his book. It's called Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming, with the subtitle Spiritual Revelations and Out-of-Body Experiences in Higher Dimensions, a complete guide to exploring non-physical reality by Vincent Field. Yeah, you can get it on Audible. You can you have it in print too, right?
Yeah, print, Kindle, Audible, however you
Awesome.
like it.
Cool. Yep. Go check that out. And if people want to reach you, are you active on social media at all, or?
No, not quite.
Okay.
You can contact me on Discord.
Okay.
I will leave my Discord ID
Yeah, and then I'll throw it in
in
the
the
description.
description. You can leave it in the description, right? And yeah,
Cool.
anyone who has questions, or if you need some help with your own practice, feel free to shoot me a DM. And I do work with people individually, and I don't charge. It's my pleasure. So definitely get at me with any questions you got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vincent. All right. Thank you for listening.